This ebook is brought to you by Agenvard 1998. Adler's theory, like that of Freud, produced many concepts that do not easily lend themselves to either verification or falsification. For example, although research has consistently shown a relationship between early childhood recollections and a person's present style of life, these results do not verify Adler's notion that present style of life shapes one's early recollections. An alternate, causal explanation is also possible, that is, early experiences may cause present style of life. Thus, one of Adler's most important concepts, the assumption that present style of life determines early memories rather than vice versa, is difficult either to verify or falsify. Another function of a useful theory is to generate research, and on this criterion we rate Adler's theory above average. Much of the research suggested by individual psychology has investigated early recollections, social interest, and style of life. For example, evidence showing that early recollections relate to myriad personality factors, including dimensions or personality clinical disorders, vocational choice, explanatory style, and psychotherapy processes and outcomes. In addition, Adler's theory has encouraged researchers to construct several social interest scales, for example, the social interest scale, the social interest index, and the Solomon scale of social interest. Research activity on these scales and on birth order, early recollections, and style of life gives Adlerian theory a moderate to high rating on its ability to generate research. How well does Adlerian theory organize knowledge into a meaningful framework? In general, individual psychology is sufficiently broad to encompass possible explanations for much of what is known about human behavior and development. Even seemingly self-defeating and inconsistent behaviors can be fit into the framework of striving for superiority. Adler's practical view of life's problems allows us to rate his theory high on its ability to make sense out of what we know about human behavior. We also rate Adlerian theory high on its ability to guide action. The theory serves the psychotherapist, the teacher, and the parent with guidelines for the solution to practical problems in a variety of settings. Adlerian practitioners gather information through reports on birth order, dreams, early recollections, childhood difficulties, and physical deficiencies. They then use this information to understand a person's style of life and to apply those specific techniques that will both increase that person's individual responsibility and broaden his or her freedom of choice. Is individual psychology internally consistent? Does it include a set of operationally defined terms? Although Adlerian theory is a model for self-consistency, it suffers from a lack of precise operational definitions. Terms such as goal of superiority and creative power have no scientific definition. Nowhere in Adler's works are they operationally defined, and the potential researcher will look in vain for precise definitions that lend themselves to rigorous study. The term creative power is an especially illusory one. Just what is this magical force that takes the raw materials of heredity and environment and molds a unique personality? How does the creative power transform itself into specific actions or operations needed by the scientist to carry out an investigation? Unfortunately, individual psychology is somewhat philosophical, even moralistic, and does not provide answers to these questions. The concept of creative power is a very appealing one. Probably most people prefer to believe that they are composed of something more than the interactions of heredity and environment. Many people intuitively feel that they have some agent, soul, ego, self, creative power, within them that allows them to make choices and to create their style of life. As inviting as it is, however, the concept of creative power is simply a fiction and cannot be scientifically studied. Due to lack of operational definitions, therefore, we rate individual psychology low on internal consistency. The final criterion of a useful theory is simplicity, or parsimony. On this standard we rate individual psychology about average. Although Adler's awkward and unorganized writings distract from the theory's rating on parsimony, the work of Ansbacher, stated, has made individual psychology more parsimonious. Concept of humanity. Adler believed that people are basically self-determined and that they shape their personalities from the meaning they give to their experiences. The building material of personality is provided by heredity and environment, but the creative power shapes this material and puts it to use. Adler frequently emphasized that the use that people make of their abilities is more important than the quantity of those abilities. Heredity endows people with certain abilities and environment gives them some opportunity to enhance those abilities. But we are ultimately responsible for the use they make of these abilities. Adler also believed that people's interpretations of experiences are more important than the experiences themselves. Neither the past nor the future determines present behavior. Instead, people are motivated by their present perceptions of the past and their present expectations of the future. These perceptions do not necessarily correspond with reality, and as Adler stated, meanings are not determined by situations, but we determine ourselves by the meanings we give to situations. People are forward-moving, motivated by future goals rather than by innate instincts or causal forces. These future goals are often rigid and unrealistic, but people's personal freedom allows them to reshape their goals and thereby change their lives. People create their personalities and are capable of altering them by learning new attitudes. These attitudes encompass an understanding that change can occur, that no other person or circumstance is responsible for what a person is, and that personal goals must be subordinated to social interest. Although our final goal is relatively fixed during early childhood, we remain free to change our style of life at any time. Because the goal is fictional and unconscious, we can set and pursue temporary goals. These momentary goals are not rigidly circumscribed by the final goal but are created by us merely as partial solutions. Adler expressed this ideas as follows: we must understand that the reactions of the human soul are not final and absolute, every response is but a partial response, plus valid temporarily, but in no way to be considered a final solution of a problem. In other words, even though our final goal is set during childhood, we are capable of change at any point in life. However, Adler maintained that not all our choices are conscious and that style of life is created through both conscious and unconscious choices. Adler believed that ultimately people are responsible for their own personalities. People's creative power is capable of transforming feelings of inadequacy into either social interest or into the self-centered goal of personal superiority. This capacity means that people remain free to choose between psychological health and neuroticism. Adler regarded self-centeredness as pathological and established social interest as the standard of psychological maturity. Healthy people have a high level of social interest, but throughout their lives, they remain free to accept or reject normality and to become what they will. On the 6 dimensions of a concept of humanity listed in Chapter 1, we rate Adler very high on free choice and optimism, very low on causality, moderate on unconscious influences, and high on social factors and on the uniqueness of individuals. In summary, Adler held that people are self-determining social creatures, forward-moving and motivated by present fictions to strive toward perfection for themselves and society.